Welcome to Amplify. I'm your host, Candice Dormon. On this show, we shine a light on people making moves, grinding, hustling, and being excellent because it's 2020 and there are still a lot of first and onlys across almost every industry. So let's dig in. Our guests today are both childcare providers. Rebecca Gonzalez is from the Bronx and is a proud mom of 4 children and a very new grandson. She is the CEO and founder of Time to Learn Daycare and has been running her childcare program for 10 years. She is an active member in her community and is a member of Early Childhood Educators on the Move, a professional networking group for New York City providers, as well as a board member of All Our Kin. Tennille Smalls is the CEO and founder of Gentle Hands Academy Daycare. Tennille first gained experience with children and families working as a family advocate in 2004. She was inspired to open her own program in 2016 after gaining her bachelor's degree in human services and her master's in organizational leadership. She is also a member of the All Our Kin board. Rebecca and Tennille, welcome to Amplify. Rebecca and Tennille, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having us, Candice.
Oh, very good. I was worried the internet just flashed for a minute, but I think that we're okay. So I just wanted to take a moment right now to say hello and welcome to everyone who's watching on Facebook tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Candice Dormon. I'm a daycare provider and the host of this show, Amplify, where we shine a light on entrepreneurs. Okay, we're gonna hope that the internet holds through tonight. It is a heat wave, and so we have been having some Wi-Fi blackouts. And I thought everything was together, but we will hold our, we'll cross our fingers and hope that we can make it through. Okay, I see everybody is here. Everybody is back. Tennille, are you on? Can you hear me?
I'm on. Can you? Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, good, perfect. Rebecca, are you on? Can I hear you? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. All right, so let's just jump right in. Today, in partnership with All Our Kin, I have the distinct pleasure of hosting a conversation with childcare providers reimagining childcare during a pandemic and global health crisis. With so much still unknown, childcare providers are a key part of
She free?
We keep coming in and out. Oh my. Are you there?
We're here.
I'm here.
Can you hear us?
Can you hear?
We're having a bit of technical difficulty, so just give us 1 minute. Hold on one moment. Let me see if I can get us.
Probably.
Is it mine? I don't think.
Okay,
we're back.
We're back.
Okay. I'm like, I can see everyone.
Yes. Okay, I can see you. Everyone, thank you so much for bearing with us during that brief technical difficulty. I think we're back on and live now. Okay, so why don't we, let me just start again so that we have a good, clean place to start. So again, thank you so much for joining us. We have a ton of people who are watching the show. So thank you so much, everyone who is here and is sticking it out. Hi, Marina and Yolanda. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
And who's still here with us even during that technical difficulty. So thank you so much for that. I want to join, I'm sorry, let's start here. Okay. So I'm so glad to have you guys on the show, and I have a ton of questions for you because I've had a ton of people asking me this question of what are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do as school goes back into session and parents are trying to make the right decision for their family and their children? But before we jump into that, let's just hear a moment from our sponsor, Marina at All Our Kin.
Hi. I'm Marina Rodriguez, co-director at All Our Kin New Haven office. We are so excited to partner with Candice and Amplify to bring you this conversation to the table. Thank you, Rebecca and Tanio, for lending your voice on this subject that is so important for us to begin to address. We hope that you all not only enjoy and feel validated by this conversation, but that you also join it through chat. If you are a childcare provider or educator and are looking for support, reach out to us. All Our Kin, we are here to serve you, just as you so devotedly serve the children and families in your community. Enjoy.
All right. Thank you again to Marina, who I have been working with to set up this conversation. I'm so excited to be having it there. It actually couldn't have come at a better time because the city of New Haven just actually put out their plan for going back to school for families yesterday. I just read an article about it. So it comes very timely. So why don't we just jump right in? Tanil, you're joining us from New Haven, and Rebecca is joining us from the Bronx. And so I just wanted to make sure that I call that out because we're going to be talking sort of generally about childcare and childcare options. And I want to make sure that people are thinking about this at a high level, but also being sure to be careful and follow the rules and regulations that are for their individual state if you happen to be watching us from any of our neighboring states. Does that make sense? All right, perfect. So why don't we just jump right in? Tanil, when the lockdown started, can you tell us a little bit about your program and how you moved forward as of March 13th?
Absolutely.
Closed.
Absolutely. First of all, I would like to just say thank you for welcoming myself and Rebecca as part of the Board of Directors and Representatives for Family Child Care Providers throughout Connecticut and New York. I don't want to speak on Rebecca's behalf, but I'll just say that I know that we're just excited and honored to be Candice. And to answer your question, I'll just go ahead and jump right in.
Please do.
This is an important question. Absolutely resonates all of us as family. It was extremely scary. At I would say the middle of March, when the pandemic really began to hit the surface, I actually had a conversation direct with Jessica Sager, director and CEO, and I said, providers are afraid. Providers that have made the decision that I am in network with, that I speak to almost on a regular basis, and there was a mixture. There was a mixture of providers' experiences based on compromising health conditions, based on possible exposure, based on members that had compromising health conditions. So I had a very scary and pressing conversation with Jessica Sager, and I said, I honestly do not know whether or not I should stay open. And first thing that Jessica told me was that she would support all family child care providers either way, whether we chose to stay open, chose to close. And that's exactly what she did. That was the best way she could personally. And I also share that same opinion and that same back to my peers. And many of us did decide to weather the storm. I personally have not closed. I did shut down briefly for 2 weeks to debrief, to increase my my equipment, my personal protective equipment, such as gloves, sanitizing equipment, Lysol, hand sanitizer, put a precautionary measure in place where we started the 6 feet distancing between the parents and the children. Those that were able to walk into our family child care program had to literally walk from their parent to the door on their own. For the children that were still in carriers, went out to the car with our masks on, and literally transport that child from our mask and turn to the that way. We began to immediately take temperatures upon arrival. Started off in regular old-fashioned thermometers that were just the electrical, where we had to wait approximately maybe 30 to 60 seconds to get a reading. And then thankful that we were actually able to get our hands on some of the immediate thermometers that were able to just at a click and temp take times a day, just put extra precautionary measures of hand washing and sanitation in place 3 times a day, 3 to 4 times a day, hand washing. And we smaller objects, smaller toys in exchange for balls. And we've even decided to go outside in our yard space instead of staying inside of our inside of the program.
That's a really good. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to say to eliminate the being inside our space throughout the day. So those are the changes that we made in the beginning, and those are the things that have continued to keep us open. So
That's a lot. And it's obviously right in line with what the guidelines that came from the Office of Early Childhood and the state said were like the best case scenarios for how we could keep our kids safe. So I'm really glad that you were able to do that. I think the best thing, the best part of what I heard you say is that you did close down for a little while, for 2 weeks, to figure out how to open back up safely. And not everybody was able to do that. So I think it's a great opportunity for you to stop and take a minute in the midst of, what was absolute basic chaos, right? And then be able to come back in stronger with your families. Rebecca, how was March? I actually don't think that Connecticut closed down in I'm sorry, I don't think that New York closed down the same day that we did. You guys were open a little bit later. Can you tell us what it looked like when you got the word from the state that schools were closing, and what decisions you made around that?
Of course. Thank you for having me here. So in March, actually 13, they announced school will be closed. Everything basically remains the same until March 23rd, when basically it was like completely shut down, meaning only essential workers would be able to go and work. So on that first very week from March 13 to the 23rd, from 22 students that I have, I only end up with 7. So it was a big impact. I think everybody was afraid the way, medias were showing the high rates of cases and everything that was going on, that we basically didn't know where it was coming. So everybody was just like, okay, is it like in the air? What is it? Like, we wasn't very sure. So here in New York City, providers are like in 3 different categories. Some are part of like agency, so they shut down on the 13th. Some of them are partnered basically with DOE, like the UPK3. So they basically were shut down also on the 13th. But independent providers like myself remain open after the 23rd. We basically were just caring for essential workers, children's. So I end up until April with only 2 children from 22. So it was a big impact.
Wow.
Yeah.
And how did you make the decision did you have the choice to close down, Rebecca? Were you considering closing? How did you make the decision to stay open?
So after 2 children, I considered to close down, but that my last parent, she was an essential worker as well, and she decided to work from home as she works in a clinic. So basically, I never officially closed down. And instead, what I did, I started doing remote learning with my children. I prepared lesson plans. I dropped them off at their home. I did Zoom 3 times a week just to stay in touch with them, because it's just like, once you start seeing your children on a daily basis, and just they stop coming, it's like you start feeling, kind of sad. So I just continue doing some remote learning with no extra, no fee. I didn't charge the parent. It's just a way to engage with the children and making sure my families were okay.
That's fantastic. Then, like Tennille said earlier, it's definitely a scary situation as a business owner when you go from enrollment of, in this case, 22 to 2. And even for some, family home providers, even going from 6 to 2 is a big change. So I'm glad that both of you have been able to sort of pick up again and weather the storm a little bit and find ways to stay engaged and to keep your head up and to keep supporting families in the ways that they needed support at that time. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some of our viewers who are watching us live on Facebook, and particularly, obviously, I'm grateful for everyone who has tuned in, but given the notes that Tennille said earlier about speaking very clearly with Jessica Sager, she is also here. I don't know her that well, but I do know that she's an incredible leader of All Our Kin, and is true to her word. When she says she's going to be there, she's there. So thank you, Jessica, for tuning in tonight, and to everyone else who is watching. Okay, so I wanted to take this point that Rebecca made about talking about shifting your offering as a childcare provider from our typical childcare curriculum for infants and toddlers to now needing to fill a gap for children who are school aged, who need school support, right? Because schools are closed. Can you tell me and that's what our conversation is tonight, because there are a lot of families who are trying to figure out what to do come September when school opens, if they really feel comfortable to send their kids back to school, and if they don't, what's going to happen? Where are kids going to be? How are we going to ensure that kids are not falling far behind? So can you tell me a little bit more, Tennille, can you tell me a little bit more about the plans that you are making to support school-age children as we move into the fall and school time?
Yes, well, I'm still at the very beginning stages of implementing something that hopefully will be successful for school-age children. I have spoken to a parent that has a child currently in our program that is an infant, and interestingly, she has decided not to send her 7th to the 7th grade. And can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, I apologize. He would be going into the 7th grade, and she decided not to send him back to school and to homeschool. So she, for numerous reasons, just she wants to remain safe and careful, and reduce physical distancing and other things such as wearing masks, children having to wear masks throughout the day, him being asthmatic. There are a number of pressing issues around schools returning, children, back to a certain amount of exposure to other children, the ratio. And I am actually just in the very, very beginning stages of trying to implement something that will hopefully be successful, not only for our infant and toddlers that we currently serve, but also for school age children. I don't know, I don't want to go too much ahead of myself in this conversation, but I do want to mention that I'm in the process of expanding our program here at Gentle Hands, and that expansion is going to include applying for a license to possibly care for, or not care for, care for and to educate children that are school aged. I'm not 100% certain how we are going to address this. I'm still in the process of talking to.
It's okay. It's okay.
Sitting on my patio, and I think that was the worst spot I could have picked. But
okay.
I'm in the process of just speaking about this educational consultant because it is brand new. And I have a number. It's not only that one particular parent. I have other parents that are starting to call to ask me if our program is open to school age children. And again, let me know if I'm jumping a little bit ahead, but this has now become a very passionate subject, a very important and pressing subject. So I believe that as family child care providers, that we should be talking to the Office of Early Childhood regarding family-based programs and our ratio. Because here in Connecticut, as we all know, we are limited. If we're not a group, our family.
It's okay. It's city living.
I hope they're done.
It's okay.
Sorry. I apologize. One car just back and forth. So as we all know, our ratio here is 6 plus 3 after school children. And during COVID-19, we have been able to provide care for a total of 9 summer. But with that number being so low, for programs that have additional space, that are family child care providers and that are in a family program, my question to the Office of Early Childhood would be, will they allow a waiver or allow us to, or that restriction to be lifted so that we can provide care for additional children that are school age, whose parents would like to send their children to a smaller, safer environment, that their younger peers attend. So that's where the conversation that I would like to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're here for tonight. And, we can only operate within the confines of what we're able to do right now. And so conversations like this is what gives the office more information to know that this is maybe what we need. So I just wanted to inject here that we did get some guidance from the Office of Early Childhood and some information that's come out from the state. So like you said, right now we are able to have 6 infants and toddlers and then an additional 3 school age kids. And they have made an adjustment so that we can have those school age kids all day. It used to be that we could only have them for before and after care, but now we can have them all day. And then to be fair, that right now, as we're trying to think through what's best for kids in terms of ratios and numbers of kids together and exposure, it might not actually make sense for us to have very many additional kids, because the whole idea in some cases is to try and keep numbers low. But what you do bring up is a really good important point that people are referring to now as micro schools, right? Which is potentially a 4 to 6, maybe 8 children that are maybe just in the same families. You're talking like 2 or 3 families that make up these kids, so that your exposure is low, and that you're basically a one-on-one tutor for these kids, and that allows the exposure for all of the families to remain low. If you are able to identify families who potentially have a similar risk profile, right? That means if they are social distancing, they're potentially not families that are essential workers and having to go out, right? You can set up groups of kids with families that have a similar profile, and then on the other hand, set up groups of kids, whose families may have a different risk profile. But this idea of a micro school and who's allowed to be a school and who's asked to take on the management of distance learning for kids. This is where I think that childcare providers can really set themselves apart, right? If you're a provider who has a passion for say preschool learning, or for helping elementary school kids through school, this might be a situation where you can take on 6 elementary age school kids and keep them in a pod and focus on their learning. The question that I have to you is, do you think that daycare providers would be able to manage a micro school of, say, elementary school learners when they're also caring for infants and toddlers? Or do you think that we might have to readjust so that some programs are still for infants and toddlers and some are instead more like a micro school for older kids? Rebecca, why don't you take that one?
Okay. So I think we will have to adjust, because we have a group of mixed age. So if we want to dedicate, now that is impossible, because we actually take the role that when children come from after school, we have sections to do homework with them. I can speak, for myself. When they have tests, I prepare them for their tests. And also, I have 2 programs. So one, I could leave it for infant and toddlers, and then in my other program, I could just focus with the after schoolers, and probably have another staff in there with me, just depending on the age of the groups. Like if it's pre-K, kindergarten, just to have that flexibility. Maybe rotating any of my staff, because unfortunately we are way under pay, so it's impossible to just start hiring people. To take these roles. So I guess funding is crucial, but it won't be impossible for us if we do have the funding. And then maybe some providers only have a little bit of amount of children in their program, and because basically the states puts like the after school should come, either before school or after. Then if that waiver is implemented, then it will be probably easier for them to actually have full ratio, and then have that time to work with the children. And also depending, because I heard now in the pandemic, like my children, they didn't have to set themselves to be like from 8 to 2 on the computer, while my niece had to do that. So it's depending, I guess, the school, the way they'll be implementing these remote learning. So maybe could work, or like maybe cannot work, just depending on if it's only 2 staff, depending how many children they have on the program. But I mean, if we planned it and we have the funds for it, childcare providers can do it.
It's that is our go-to answer, right? As providers, we're here to fill a need for families, to make sure that we're giving families what they need, and I think typically most childcare providers do have that gusto, right? If we make a plan, we can get it done. I like that. Okay. Tennille, do you think that there's space for childcare providers to have a increased partnership, like a more clear partnership with local schools?
Absolutely. Candice, I can't stress enough how much us as family childcare providers would like to do more. I mean, we're all entrepreneurs, we are business owners, and but we are unique because we are providing care out of our homes, right? But the reality of it is not everyone is able. I'm fortunate to have an assistant that actually will she will go forward with me with decreased pay. If I don't get paid and she don't get paid and I have to pay my mortgage, that's just what it is. If we are decreased because of our numbers, which did happen at the beginning of the whole pandemic. However, if we were supported financially, I'm pretty sure that there are a number of providers that would probably say, I would be more than happy to, hire an assistant if I was financially able to do so. And with that being said, and that being a reality for many of us, I'm sure that we would also be to open our door and be able to educate school age children. And when you look at center-based programs, they actually have the option of having school readiness in their programs where they're funded for caring for children up to, I believe it's 5 years old, or they're not, your first, second, third, or fourth, they're not school age, but they're pre-K kindergartners. They're still prepping them where they can be in an actual school setting. They have the option of receiving school readiness funds to educate them up until, I believe, kindergarten, if I'm not mistaken. But on that, but I'm pretty sure a lot of providers would, if that were option available to us, I'm sure that there are providers that I personally would say, yes, we would, because this is what we do. We live, breathe compassion and care and education for children. So, and it's also a way for us to expand our program and our business and the things that we would have to provide. But we can't do it alone. Additional funds would allow us to have additional support. Additional support would allow us to be able to care for additional children.
Absolutely. I think at the end of the day, like most things, it definitely comes down to funding. And the thing that I'm most worried about is that families who are able to provide supplemental, right? We already know that if you're able to provide supplemental tutoring or additional activities for your kid, like it makes a difference. And so if during this time when we're all afraid, if some parents provide supplemental support for their children to go to a paid program and other families are not, I'm very worried that it will continue to widen the gap that we faced here in Connecticut and definitely also in New York between families of means and families that don't, right? And so I think this is a very important part where the state and this at the city level should be figuring out as best as they can how to make it so that all of our children during this time when we're trying so hard to make sure that everyone is safe, that we indeed make sure that everyone is safe, right? And so if small micro schools are available for families with means, then we need to find a way to make it so that they are also available for all of the other families. I didn't want that to come off harsh on anyone, because I know that everybody is working as hard as they can, but like things need to be said, right? We put people in charge. We put people in charge of our children and our city. We want to make sure that they're keeping everybody in mind when they are making decisions that in this scenario can be life and death. I want to switch a little bit over to us as providers. I've been a provider for 2 years, and I know that you all have been providers for a little bit longer, like way longer than I have. But what I found in my time as a provider is a little bit of isolation, and typically we operate on our own, right? You want to make sure that you're running your program so that you have the best program and people will want to come to you and your numbers stay where they should be, right? I feel like sometimes we have a hard time of opening up as providers for fear of competition. Do you think that there are ways, Rebecca, do you think that there are ways that providers can be a little bit more collaborative during this time to fill the gap for families?
I think the competition, I think it was just like an old version thing. of seeing who gets more kids than who. At this point, I think parents are the one that actually chose the programs where they actually feel comfortable taking the children's. And us provider inside our community, we got to make sure that we do the best for our families, for our children's. And the only way we could do it if we support one of another. So giving, helping, giving resources out. Sometimes maybe a provider, because of their language barrier, they can have access to certain stuff, just making sure that those providers get what they have to get, and also unite, just not see it as a competition, see it as the benefit that the children's in our community will actually have. So I don't have that problem with where I live. I'm connected with the providers here, good. So it's really good.
I love it. I love it. And Tennille, would you agree with Rebecca? How do you feel about collaboration?
I agree with Rebecca 110%. I mean, even she and I have grown a very unique rapport, and I would say even a friendship. Even though we had just became board of director members right before COVID hit, and we didn't get a chance to actually officially meet the rest of the board, but we were fortunately able to join Jessica Sager in Las Vegas just 1 month prior to COVID hitting, and we were able to meet each other and we spent time together. But in addition to that, I can say that here in Connecticut, in particular in the outskirts of the New area, there are multiple groups of providers that meet via WhatsApp, and we stay connected on a daily basis. We update each other on what's going on with our child care union. We update each other on what's going on with the Office of Early Child Care here in Connecticut. We are 100% collaborative. There is no competition amongst us. And I can even say prior to COVID, there hasn't. I think, Candice, over the years, things have shifted quite a bit in regards to support and collaboration and camaraderie amongst childcare providers. And, I've even connected, after my initial connection with All Our Kin, I connected with the childcare union, and, just all of those collaborations and connections have formed smaller mini interpersonal relationships where we make sure that our programs are full. If there's one or two of us that are struggling, that have not really had a good time, a smooth transition with advertising, we say, listen, I have a kid that I can't fill the spot because, as we know, we're limited. Can you take this child? And we bounce off of each other to make sure that we're not only all thriving and that we're full, but sometimes if there's someone that has a child that they maybe, I keep freezing a little. There's someone that has a child that is too much for a particular program, or does not meet the needs, or the needs of that program aren't being met by the needs of that child is not being met, by that particular program. We will call another provider that has a little experience. And I just want to say shout out to our providers, because I'm always humbled and honored to be chosen for an opportunity to speak on behalf of family child care providers. But there are so many providers in network, in the All Our Kin network and abroad, that are so amazing. I mean, shout out to our providers. They are, I have learned so much. Yeah. I don't want to call out names because I might get yelled at. Oh, you didn't mention me. But we have some gurus in this field. I mean, that I admire greatly, that are in the West Haven area, the New Haven area, that are part of the fucking, you see back because they're wonderful. So when I'm chosen, I'm just humbled because I literally learned so much from my peers. And that, Candice, when it comes to competition, there is none. We learn from one another, and there are no small I's and little U's in family child care programs throughout the state of Connecticut. These women are, they're the bomb.
They really are. And go ahead.
I don't want my New York providers to feel left back neither. I'm part of a group of like 500, 600 providers here with Easy on the Move. It's a small organization, but we just unite together and we just make sure we support each other with the different resources and stuff. So shout out to my mentor, Gladys Johns, because she's always making sure that all the providers here in New York City are top notch with everything that we have to be facing. And all our kin, thank you for having me on the board, because they also are organizations that truly support providers.
Absolutely.
I would totally agree with that. I think that having had all our kin to go to when I was early in the process of getting my license and opening my business definitely exposed me to a lot of women who had been doing this work for so many years. I found so much support and grace and information from all of the women that I met in that through the couple years that I've been involved with All Our Kin. And I think that the purpose of the group is actually to create some these kinds of connections, because otherwise the childcare profession, us as providers, it can be isolating just by nature of the work, right? You're typically the only adult in the room with 5 to 9 children. And it's good to know at a professional level that there are other people doing the same kind of work, that there are ways to improve the work that you're doing, to learn more, to get better, to be able to offer deeper and stronger services to the families that you are working with. So definitely shout out to the providers as a whole. And I'm really glad to hear that collaboration is alive and well. It is alive and well. There was a question here that someone said, have we heard of any interesting ways that cities are providing, interesting and innovative ways that cities are providing funds for in-home childcare centers, especially during this time? Have any of you heard about any special funding?
I haven't heard.
So the thing that comes to mind, and I don't have like exact answers for this, but the thing that does come to mind in terms of Connecticut offering some supplemental funding that has totally been helpful to providers who have stayed open is the I don't know exactly what it's called, but the fund that was there. Say that again.
The PPE supplies funding that they
PPE
give?
supplies, yep. So that I call everything a stimulus right now, right? And support. So the extra supplies, I did get a thermometer. I do know that they set up Can you hear me? Am I muted? Hello?
I could hear you.
Okay, we'll wait for her to get reconnected. Hello? Tennille?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Hold on one moment.
Can you hear me?
There we go. Yes, we can hear you. Sometimes it takes a minute.
Okay.
Give us one moment as we adjust here. Okay, we're going to give it just a minute to reconnect. But while she's reconnecting, someone did bring up CT Cares. That's the name of the program that I was thinking about. I think it does support children, families who are essential workers, who have essential workers. So family childcare providers were able to tap into to funding there. I'm not exactly sure if parents had to apply or if providers had to apply directly, but there is a CT Cares.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I think she disconnected by accident.
Okay.
Hi, sorry about that.
Oh, you're back.
All right. Can I just elaborate a little bit
I'm
about
back. I hear some
cares?
voices. I hear
Okay.
some voices. I can't see. Oh, here we go. All right. Thank you everyone for your patience. I tell you, these Wi-Fi blackouts associated with the heat is definitely something to be leave something desired. I have to give my provider a call.
A little challenging.
Okay. I know, but we're gonna push through. We're almost done. Okay, so someone said the CT Cares Act, Connecticut Cares, and that was funding that was provided for essential workers. So that is true. Joyce says that her town donated masks. Let's see.
That's awesome. Can I just elaborate a
The
little bit,
CT Cares
Candice,
is
on
over.
the
Yes, please do.
Yes, the CT Cares Act was amazing. It was awesome, but it also ended. So that was short-lived. It was a short-lived funding program that was offered by the Office of Child Care here in Connecticut. And it was for programs that were still open. It was approximately between 200 and I believe it depended on how many children were enrolled in the program. And then there was also the Connecticut cares for healthcare workers funding. I believe for that was primarily for for parents that were in our programs that were healthcare workers. So that program also ended at the I believe the beginning of this month. So there are still some people that are receiving paychecks that or receiving pay that was backlogged because although we registered for the CT Cures Act, some of us did not receive funding for a few weeks. So there are some checks that are still coming through, but that program unfortunately has ended. Candice, I don't know if you're aware, but we are now fighting for $50 billion to be approved for this nation, nationwide, for it's, specifically to help with funding for early child care education for ECE. And
oh, go ahead.
that's just a buffer. That's just the beginning of what we'll need to survive this pandemic, and also for us to to stay afloat and to stay established and to keep a foundation in our programs. So we're hoping. I mean, I know we're coming to a close, and my main thing is that we have to press our legislators. We have to press our local officials, our federal officials. We have to press. Although we know Representative Rosa DeLauro is fighting for us, we have to continue to press Congress to let them know that, hey, family child care providers are essential. Yes, absolutely. Jessica said that 50 billion is to keep child care going, and we need even more, because we're looking at, uncertain times that we have no idea how long we have to brace this pandemic. So we want to make sure that family child care providers and child care education is sustained, and we need massive action in order for that to be done. Massive financial action.
Yes, and that $50 billion request is at the federal level. So that is a request that we are making in tandem and in partnership with childcare providers across the country, right, at the national level. And it's absolutely true that we do need that funding. And I want to make sure that people are aware that we're not asking for this funding for us as providers. We're asking for this funding for children and families and providers, right? We also have families and children that we need to be able to support while we are filling this role that we are also absolutely dedicated to. And families need this kind of support. So it should be seen just as a right that families have to support systems from their government, right? From their cities, from their government. Strong, safe, high quality childcare should also be included in the things that families should have a right to, right? At a basic level, all families should be afforded this option and should be able to put their children in a safe place. Now we have to add on top of that safe in regards to health, right? And in the midst of a global pandemic, but we want to make sure that all families feel that they can make the right choice, that in the midst of an impossible choice, that there is a choice. And I really believe that family childcare providers can be that, but it takes everyone. It takes our elected officials, who I do know have heard us and are in agreement with us and are going to the Capitol to make these requests on our behalf. But it takes all of us all the time pushing to make sure that when decisions are being made, that they're not being made on the backs of our children, right? Not on the backs of our children, not our families, not our providers.
Absolutely.
As we close, I want to make sure that we're giving some ideas to providers who might be watching, who are still in the midst of planning, making plans for how they might move forward. I myself have been closed since March. I made that decision for my family, having a child with asthma and not being sure how this illness would affect my son with asthma. And I have been thinking about creative ways that I might be able to reopen. So I want to make sure that as we close, that we give people some ideas on how they might be able to adjust their program so that it works for them as a business owner, right? We do this out of our hearts, but also we are business owners, and we want to make sure that we're providing a service that we feel comfortable with and also meets the needs of families. So I know that you're expanding your center. Rebecca, have you heard of any interesting and innovative ways that providers are moving forward with their offerings and their programs?
So speaking to other providers, some have made adjustment, moving furniture, having trying to keep a social distance, a little bit impossible when it comes to children's, but I think is something that we have to educate them, and it's going to become later on part of our daily routine, something that I guess we have to live on. So some providers have like little boxes where they put like special toys, and they just rotate them on a daily basis, so those children don't be sharing toys, making sure they have things labeled, especially like on the floors on the different areas of keeping social distance, putting policies in place, which is very, very, very important. I think the providers that are closed or the providers that remain open is still everything basically new, as we had to implement new policies with the COVID, because this is something that took everybody unaware. So I think it's something new for everyone. We do daily health check, but now making sure that we take the temperature, making assessments to make sure that the children are fine, and the parents, they were okay over the night, and just take it day by day.
Perfect. And you, Tennille, have you heard of ways that that providers are rethinking how they offer their program to maybe fill the gap for families who might not want to send their kids back to school in the fall?
Absolutely. I have spoken to a few providers that have done an amazing job at helping parents to realize the importance of the physical distancing, instead of things as we do them in regards to dropping children at the door or even entering into our home programs. We just emphasize and really, really reiterate every day that physical distancing. And I've spoken to providers that have passed out information regarding COVID to keep parents aware of the seriousness and how important it is for them to even stay isolated in their own homes and to practice, wearing masks and physical distancing even outside of our programs, because we can do everything that we can in our programs, but what are parents doing when they leave our programs with their children? That is also important as well. So educating our parents and letting our parents know the importance of keeping themselves physically distanced from others is in keeping themselves masked, when they are outside of their homes is essential. It's really important for them, the children, and us as their providers. And also a lot of the things that Rebecca has already mentioned in regards to temperature taking and things that we talked about earlier with, just I like to say more physical distancing than social distancing because, when we socialize, we're talking, we're interacting, we're socializing right now. So I tried to really change our terminology and say we're going to physically distance ourselves a little bit more. We decrease the use of smaller objects that can cause cross-contamination with children. We've exchanged them for balls and bigger blocks and things like that I've had conversations with different providers. Small things like that decrease the transition of cross-contamination will go very far. We've increased our sanitization water, where it's hard to find Lysol spray and other spray cleaners. We can find bleach everywhere. So as far as I've experienced. So we've just increased the usage of 3 parts water, 1 part bleach, and we have a spray bottle in almost every area, that is away from the children, but after every meal, after breakfast, after snack, after lunch, after afternoon snack, we are spraying down tables, opening windows. We're doing everything that we can because at this stage, when we're talking about phase 2 of this pandemic, it is going to be based on the survival of the fittest. In other words, only those providers that are willing to do things strategically are going to survive this pandemic. And we really have to take it serious and be as precautious and safe as possible and continue to educate our parents and stay connected to one another.
I love it. I love it. That's perfect. Before we end, I just want to make sure that we address a couple questions that have come in. Someone has asked, are there particular organizations leading this fight for the $50 billion that we can support in addition to contacting legislators? We did have an answer come in directly from All Our Kin. Let me just put that on the screen now. So All Our Kin is partnering with several national organizations, including the National Women's Law Center, NIAC, NAFC, the Alliance for Early Success in 0 to 3. People from the office, Christine and Jade, are sharing information regularly on how you can help advocate for family childcare providers and families and children. And so you can we will have information here listed below, and you can find information on their website. Sign up for All Our Kin's newsletter, and that will help you stay in contact with them when there are opportunities to reach out to legislators. There were just a couple other questions I want to make sure that we address. So someone here says, Jocelyn says, I have several small children. Small childcare providers. Okay, I'm having a hard time seeing. I have several small childcare providers who are local to me in my neighborhood. Is there anything immediate that community members can do to help support these independent providers to make sure they survive beyond the pandemic, even if we don't currently send our children there? Tennille, do you have an answer for that? I have one, but I'll toss it to you.
I'll actually toss it back because I can't think of one off the top of my head at this point.
Sure.
Go for it, Candice.
Okay, so I think that the best thing that families can do sort of in a community, as a community, is to make sure that when you hear that your friends are looking for providers or looking for support, that you refer. Right? Referrals go a really long way, especially for families especially for families who are looking for a place to leave their child, right? It is their most precious asset, and it is very difficult. I remember what it was like trying to find a provider for my children. You just don't know anybody, right? And having someone refer someone else at least gives you that first step, faith, the confidence that this person can be, a safe place for your child, right? And it goes a long way, right? I would venture to say that most providers get 80-90% of their clients through referrals. And we all know people who, like, I've met providers because of other parents, right? Oh, did you meet this person? Oh, have you heard of that person? Because good providers go a long way, right? It's always top of mind, top word of mouth, but sometimes people talk about the same people. So if you are interested and open to getting to know your community and who's in your community, think about your providers as your local bodega owner or your local handyman or your local, right, your local church, like the different people who offer services in your neighborhood. Think of your providers as the same way. And when you find a family who's looking for someone, make sure that you pass along the information. I think it will go a long way.
There were just, I just say one thing in addition to what you mentioned. I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head, you know, in regards to looking to our community providers and two-on-one childcare and asking for providers that are within the vicinity of where there are programs are. There are amazing providers that are right in our you know, surrounding areas. Sometimes we know them, sometimes we don't, but just contacting 211 Childcare and asking about other providers and what their program is about is another way to refer a child or family to a national program if we are not ourselves able to care for that particular in their needs.
Yep, I think a great question. Go ahead.
I think also when you place your business in the community, sometimes you get to live in the community, but you could go to the local pharmacy, to the local supermarket, and people just know you by who you are, but they don't know you're a family childcare provider. Mm-hmm. So basically, introducing yourself as like also a business owner inside the community could give them the ability to know, okay, we see this lady all the time here, we even see her with her children, and it's something that it could just be more in a family and friendly zone. So 90%, I would say 95% of my children's in these past 10 years are been
referrals. Yeah. So you didn't know you were coming tonight for some marketing tips, but we've got you covered. There were just a few other questions. There are some people asking questions about masks. I think that the general answer there is that providers are wearing masks where feasible, where we can. I think in the case of small children, we're trying to figure out what's right. If we do everything that we can to make sure that our spaces got as much fresh air as we can, and we keep our distance from parents at arrival and drop off, we also want to make sure that we are comfortable in our homes, that we are not placing any undue stress on children. I think that if children were watching providers with masks on all day, like I can't imagine being able to keep on a mask and not having a 1-year-old come and try and pull it off and try and talk to you and try to, right? It is a different setup in a family home setting. The whole purpose of that setting is to feel like a home. And so as we find ways to make sure that our spaces are clean, we also want to make sure that we're taking care of our kids sort of emotionally and physically and socially and that sort of thing. And so I promise you that providers are doing the best that they can to make sure that they're staying as absolutely safe as they can be. But we also are aware and understanding that home providers are in their home with small children, babies who don't really understand people having on masks. I do say that with the caveat that children are getting more used to it. It's only been 4 or 5 months, and older kids, toddlers, preschool age kids are getting used to it. I know that the information that's coming out is for families, for parents to start getting your children more used to wearing masks, so that when they get to school, it's not the first time that they're putting it on. When we get them into like actual school buildings and more general education facilities, right? We want older kids to be more comfortable and familiar with wearing masks so that they can stay safe.
I think it's just called like basically routine. So if the parents implemented it at home, every time they go out, they make sure that the children walk with the sanitizer, making sure the children are washing their hands. Also, when the children arrive to the programs, we encourage that. So when they go to the school, they basically doing that. It just become a whole habit as a part of the routine. And it's just not so much as like now at the beginning of the stage, we were just more about thinking in the list. What are we making? Just not to make an error, and that could cause somebody getting sick. So just becoming more with the practice, I think we're just gonna make it.
Yeah, here's another comment from someone as ways that you can support your providers, followed up by another person who's saying, let's see here, that there have been some families who have been able to continue paying their provider through the pandemic if they were closed. I think that if there are ways to we're not expecting for people to do things beyond their means, but if you're able to continue paying your provider as if it were a utility, right? That helps to make sure that your utility is there and ready for you when you're ready to come back to them. Because if like Tennille said, if we can't pay the mortgage, if we can't do the things that keep our business and our home running, then we won't have a business or home for you to come to when you're ready to come back.
Sure.
Absolutely. So I just wanted to close. I just wanted to close by saying, Tennille and Rebecca, thank you so much for taking time to come on here and talk with me about some pretty personal things, right? The goings on of your business as it relates to your mortgage and income, right? It is a very tough thing to put out there that things are hard. The things are hard, and that providers, and I think most service providers, are struggling during this time. But there's also bright lights, right? Where people can, they are continuing to pay their services like utilities so that they can keep afloat, that there are programs out there that are available for us to help us financially keep our small business and most small businesses open and running. But it does take a level of humbleness to be able to ask for help, to be able to speak up so that other people don't feel like they are alone in whatever struggles that they might be going through. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm so grateful for you and for your voice as members of the All Our Kin board and as representatives for our local childcare providers. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Can I just one more time give one more shout out to our family childcare providers and a little word
Absolutely.
some of our providers.
Church.
Thank you. For our Connecticut and New York providers, for those of us that have decided to temporarily close our programs, I just wanted to say, keep the faith, keep the hope, because all hope is not lost. I believe that this pandemic, although it's like a catch-22. I believe that there has never been a time more important as now for us to really, and be heard. Our voices are really heard at the federal level. Many of you probably have seen or heard about that was done with Senator Richard Blumenthal and Representative Rosa DeLauro, and it was amazing. But what it did is it was more than about the $50 billion. It was about family child care providers specifically and what we do. And I really made a specific point by saying that this is a unique position because we do not get to actually go out to a job, right? To actually go out somewhere and go to work and come back into our home. Our job is our home. Our work is our home environment. We are risking our lives, our children, our immediate loved ones. And then, we're also providing superb, excellent care to family, essential family child care work, essential healthcare workers and workers that have no other choice but to go to work. But we're doing this out of our homes. So I just want to encourage every family child care provider, whether you are temporarily closed, permanently closed, or on the front lines like the rest of us, stay encouraged, keep the faith, continue to do all of the things that you have done to prevent, exposure and Stay connected to your network, stay connected to All Our Kin, stay connected to other networks that are out there, such as Circle and other programs throughout the state and throughout, New York and Connecticut. Stay connected to your local and federal politicians, and continue to make noise, for family child care providers, because we're important. And without us, people cannot go to work. We are needed. We are essential.
We are the foundation.
So, absolutely. So Candice, thank you. It's an honor.
Absolutely. So thank you to everyone who's watched tonight and who has sent in questions. I hope that you found the answers here reasonable. I hope that if you have more questions, that you'll reach out to any of us or to reach out to All Our Kin, who's doing a lot of amazing work on our behalf as family childcare providers. They have a ton of resources and information on their website. So please reach out to them if you are looking for information or support as a childcare provider. I would say parents who are watching, if you have any questions about what's available to you and options that are available to you come September, make sure that during this time when you're thinking about what you're going to do, that you also look around and talk to your childcare providers to see if there are any opportunities to connect with them, for them to help to fill some gaps that you might need. There is definitely information out there. There's definitely support out there, and we're all in this together. And I think that's the biggest takeaway that I've gotten from this conversation tonight, and from the many conversations I've had with families and providers about what it is exactly that we're going to do in the fall. So on that note, a special thank you to All Our Kin for sponsoring our show tonight. Until next time. Thank you to our sponsor, All Our Kin, who serves the childcare communities of Bridgeport, Danbury, New Haven, Stamford, Norwalk, and the Bronx, New York. All Our Kin trains, supports, and sustains community childcare providers to ensure that children and families have the foundation they need to succeed in school and in life. Through their programs, childcare professionals succeed as business owners. Working parents find stable, high-quality care for their children, and children gain an educational foundation that lays the groundwork for achievement in school and beyond. To learn more, visit them at www.allourkin.org. I'm your host, Candice Dormon. Until next time.